DV is extremely dangerous.
Actually, attempting to leave is one of the strongest triggers for a
I'm sure.
Because they don't want you to leave.
I'm sure if you were to attempt to leave in the wrong situation, majority of people who are committing domestic violence would probably kill someone.
The autopsy indicated that whatever happened to Diana was not an accident. She had multiple defensive wounds, as well as red marks around her knees and ankles that told detectives she had likely been tied up. She'd suffered blunt force trauma to the head, and her cause of was strangulation. So if he drove her here with her body in the trunk, we need to prove that he then somehow got home. Because how did he get home from here? They begin calling taxi companies around the area, seeing if anyone picked up a guy fitting Mike's description from that Publix parking lot, and they get lucky. They find one taxi driver who says he picked up a guy in the exact same clothes Mike was seen wearing in surveillance footage that day. Now, during that nearly hour ride back to Vero Beach, the cab driver said Mike told him he and his friend had gotten into a fight and she had left him. But the real kicker was when they presented the cab driver with a lineup of suspects. Can you try to identify him? He picks Mike out right away. So now they have a witness, a strong witness, but nothing beats physical DNA evidence in court. And when police do a search of Mike's home and garage, they find a few small drops of blood. When they test it, they prove it's Diana's DNA. So on June 25th, 2014, Mike Jones is charged with first-degree murder for killing Diana. Now, as the prosecution begins digging into Mike's background to build out a case against him for trial, they learn this guy wasn't just abusive to the people in his life, he also made up many elaborate lies to rope people in and keep them close. Mike had a lot of really interesting facts about himself that he shared with people. That his brother-in-law was country singer Jason Aldean, that he was adopted by the Reagans, and that he played minor league baseball, that he had a penthouse in Fort Lauderdale, he had a Porsche that he only drove on the weekends.
Oh my gosh.
None of this is true. Mike Jones was a pathological liar. Mike Jones's trial began in October of 2019. Mike's defense team argued there was so much more to the story and that the jury should have a little bit of sympathy for him because of two very traumatic things that had happened to Mike: prior abuse and a traumatic brain injury. Michael was an avid motocross rider and sustained so many injuries over the years that he suffered from CTE. But here's the thing, there is no medical records ever presented as evidence to show that Michael had repeated head trauma, that he had been diagnosed with them, but the prosecution had an excellent rebuttal for all this. If the plan was to argue that Michael Jones had some sort of cognitive deficiency that made him take his girlfriend's life, well then that same cognitive deficiency would have made it hard for him to do his job. After deliberating for only 45 minutes, the jury was back with a verdict. Michael Jones was guilty of first-degree murder.